And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fifth and final session of UKCloud's State of Digital and Data Summit. I'm Luke Downs, Partner Marketing Manager here at UKCloud, and I'm delighted to be joined by Sally Sfeir-Tait, CEO at Regulation. As a solicitor and barrister, Sally has held numerous roles in the financial services industry and has a unique background which fuses the complex and interconnected worlds of regulation and technology. Sally has advised in private and public sector on fintech, blockchain, ICOs, cryptocurrencies, smart initiatives, artificial intelligence and innovation, to name a few. Sally joins us today to discuss data collaboration and analytics without data sharing. There'll be a live Q&A at the end of the presentation, so if you have any questions for Sally, please submit them in the questions box below and I'll fill them at the end of the presentation. But until then, I'd like to pass across to Sally.
Hi everyone. It's always I always feel old when I'm introduced. Do you want me to start the slides straight away?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
Okay. Let me see. There we go. Okay. Can everybody see the slides?
Yep.
Great. Well, first, thanks for having me today. I always enjoy those talks. If the talks were face-to-face, I'd enjoy them more. But this is the world that we live in. So let me tell you what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to lead with the AIR platform because it is very much the subject of this talk, which is the data collaboration analytics without data sharing. But we're going to put it in the context of the national data strategy because really it is an enabler for the national data strategy. And then we're going to talk in more detail about why it's an enabler for the national data strategy. So a bit about us. We're a UK company. Our roots are from digital regulatory reporting. So we came out of University College London. And because of my background as a financial services lawyer, ex-regulator, and my co-founders' background, who are still at UCL and PhDs and professors, we really started discovering the problem of data sharing in the context of digital regulatory reporting. We've had a very big year, 2020, because we've experienced a lot of growth. You'll see that we've tripled our workforce here based in the UK. Also, a reason why we're talking about the AIR platform today is because its development was funded by Innovate UK as part of achieving the industrial strategy. So it was the data access program. And in 2020, we also won the Monetary Authority of Singapore Global Accelerator. Again, it was the AIR platform. So we operate in the business to government sector and the business to business sector. All of our customers are large organizations, and that's because they need a complete data management solution. So the AIR platform is a complete solution that tackles trust, security, privacy, and governance. This is important to keep throughout this talk because in most instances when people talk about data collaboration, they tend to focus on data privacy. By the way, can you see my cursor? Or is it just the slides?
It's just the slides.
Okay, fine. So if you look at the bottom left-hand corner of the image, privacy is one of the components, but we know that one cannot solve for privacy without also solving for governance and security and having a trustworthy solution. So what is the AIR platform? And I promise I'm going to bring it all back together into the national data strategy, and then I'm going to go back to more details about the AIR platform. But for the purposes of this slide, and this is really an introduction so that everybody can really understand what we're talking about practically, we're effectively talking about multiple organizations coming together in a circle of trust. So that circle is a circle of trust. Now, we're not saying that the organizations are going to trust each other with their data or are going to share their data, actually physically share their data with each other. We're saying that we're going to enable them to extract insight from that data, and it's trusted insight. So a little bit of language. Let's talk a bit about the words that we're going to use throughout. So there's data sharing, which is I have the data and I have shared my data with somebody else. To us, sharing means losing control of the data. So in the context of sharing, that's usually what we mean, which is why we don't talk about sharing data, but we talk about sharing insight. Then you've got data availability, which is the new term, and you will see it throughout the national data strategy. Because in today's world, there is so much data, actually what you need from it is business intelligence. So you don't actually need, in most instances, the personal information that is present in the data. But what you need is for the data to be available for algorithms to consume that insight and reveal it in solutions. So that's why we talk about data availability and not data sharing. So let's now bring it all together in the context of the national data strategy. These numbers are pretty big, and I think that probably does underpin the reason why the UK sees data as a national asset. So if you want to create economic benefit throughout the UK, really we have to connect the data to each other so that we can solve lots of problems that will be built on top. And let's go into, actually, we'll tackle that one in a minute. So say that you wanted to deliver services to consumers. And we all know that in the context of public services, the data is often present in multiple organizations. So a common situation in the world of regulation is that a consumer or an organization or a business or an individual would be subject to multiple regulation and multiple regulators. What they would normally do is that they would go to, if a problem were to occur or if something were to occur, they would go to each of the regulators that they think they might be subject to, and they would ask the same question. So that's a duplication of effort. If you had a common data infrastructure where the right data could be accessed for the right purpose, then that would make it easier for the public sector who's dealing with those queries and for the consumer who has just one point of call. So what are the barriers? And it's quite common for us, these three are the standard ones that we always see. We've seen these three forever. Every time there's a change and a shift and a transformation, you always have to look at people, processes, and technology. Now, the good news is that, and we've completed a study with the ODI that we'll be publishing soon, so that's the Open Data Institute. 2020 has seen an improvement on the side of people, processes, and technology. People are more ready for transformation. Processes have improved because organizations have been working on documenting processes and on improving processes. And technology has been continuously improving. But that is still not enough because that Gartner quote and study is actually quite important. If you think about Europe, we've got GDPR, but the rest of the world still doesn't. So there's going to be an increase from 10% of the world having privacy regulation to 65% of the world having privacy legislation. So in the context of international data flow, the barriers are about to increase. This is a straight lift from the National Data Strategy, and I hope it looks clear, but please do feel free to go and visit it on the website. So the AIR platform, and what we're going to be talking about next is in the bottom yellow bit of that image. So we're going to be talking about the pillars of effective data use. So when I was talking earlier about data being made available, it's in that yellow box. When I gave the examples of a consumer asking questions from multiple regulators, that goes up in the opportunities box. and it's specifically the public services box. So effectively, in order to provide better services to consumers and to the public, we need to address the pillars. And that is why we developed the AIR platform. That is why Innovate UK funded its development. So let's talk about the foundations a little bit. I understand that some of the attendees are technical and others are policy, so we're going to try and strike a balance between the two. I came from a policy background and I've had to learn technology, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to do both of these areas service, but forgive me if I don't. So what are the foundations? The foundations are about data being fit for purpose. So data is not universal. So the way that, forgive me, just 1 second, let me turn off my notifications. So there we go. If you talk to a data scientist about data, they will talk about data sets. Business people will talk about data almost in the same way that they will talk about information. But actually, the world of data is quite varied. And the types of data and how algorithms understand them is also really complex. So, for example, numerical data is more easy to ingest than textual data. And then you've got the format of it, et cetera, et cetera. So when we talk about the foundation of data being fit for purpose, it'll be about, you will hear a lot of talk about data quality, whether the data is clean or dirty. That is in that section, the foundations. Now, skills. So skills are, again, across the board. And by the way, these are better explained in the National Data Strategy, so do please visit that page. But in summary, the skills is all about, there's a world of transformation going on. There is a lot of new technologies that are being used, and there's a lot of new infrastructure that's being deployed. We need everybody within organizations to be versed in that new world. So that means having basic skills of understanding of technology. That means having data scientists potentially. So if you see the FCA and the Bank of England, they have a lot more data scientists now on staff than they used to. And on the governance side, it's about having your chief data officer, your chief data governance people, and then looking at ways to automate governance. So the skills is a long process, as it should be. And then we've got availability. So I talked about the difference between availability and access and sharing. This is exactly what I meant. So the data has to be accessible and available for algorithms to understand. Now, accessible also means present in systems that we can still access. So again, this is about available from a governance perspective. Can I use that data for that purpose? Available in a format that I can use, and available in a system that I can access. And then finally, responsibility. One cannot just make data accessible and available, because you have to be mindful of the interest of the individuals that are mentioned, who that data relates to. So we have to have a safe environment that we also trust. And this is absolutely key. It's really important that I say this, because we are a technology company, but we're a technology company with our roots in regulation. And it is not really, we do not believe in data sharing today. In instances where data sharing is mandated by law, absolutely you have to share the data. But otherwise, if you share the data, you lose control of that data, and you don't really know what the person you've shared that data with is going to do with it. And I know I'm speaking to people who are risk averse, and that's because we are very risk averse. So I was really pleased when I saw responsibility as one of the foundations. So now on to the good news. The good news is that technology, usually we say that technology moves very fast, and because technology moves very fast, we can't keep up. But also the good news is that technology moves very fast. So every time that there is a problem, a technological solution will be found to it. So, for example, and this is for the technical people in the audience, federated learning is a technology solution that came about because of GDPR. So for the non-technical audience, what is federated learning? Federated learning is a traveling algorithm. So effectively, the algorithm travels to the data, not the data traveling to the algorithm. Now, this is one of the technology solutions, and we'll be talking about it a little bit more later. But the idea here is that next generation technologies are to the rescue, and you do not have to compromise on risk management to get data analytics. At least we do not believe so, and we have developed a platform to do exactly that. Now, what are the benefits of automation? So again, we're linking it to foundations, availability, skills, and responsibility. We came out of digital regulatory reporting. Now, for those who don't know, but digital regulatory reporting is a long-term initiative of the Bank of England and the FCA. And the work started really in 2016. It's important that I tell you the story in this context so that I can bring it a little bit to life. Because the first iteration of it in 2016 was very much in the skills. It was an environment where everybody was learning about the problem and learning what they needed to learn. So it was about revealing the unknown unknowns and talking about the known unknowns. And then trying to see who else around the table, who else needed to be around the table, what other skill sets were needed. So it's very much in the context of public sector discovery, or even pre-discovery, I would say. Because we were involved as UCL in a pre-discovery phase. And then we developed the first blockchain system that was used, and do look it up, it's digital regulatory reporting, phase 1 viability. We developed the first blockchain system for the firms to share information with the regulators. And that was the first iteration of the AIR platform. So with that, we have proven to ourselves that in the foundations box, we could achieve up to 50% of savings. And that is not a negligible amount, because regulatory reporting in the banking sector costs the banks annually £4.5 billion. So that's a lot of savings. Then in the second box, which is data availability, and this is very much about communicating the data to the right regulator, the right data to the right regulator at the right time in the right context. And that, again, we prove to ourselves that we can achieve very large savings. And ultimately, we know that it has to be responsibly developed. And achieving responsibility requires multiple levers, but the ones that are the most useful, really, we think, are auditability and transparency. Because auditability, you can see what's happening, and it's completely transparent in the sense that anybody can report on it and can see what's going on. Now let's go through each of those and bring it a little bit to life in the context of the AIR platform and how it achieves things. So in the context of the foundation, so this is about data quality, remember? So you've got the traditional model, which is, if I want analytics, I have to bring the data to a central repository, and then I have to bring the algorithm to the data. It will make a computation, and it will reveal the analytics for me. What we've designed as part of and developed as part of the platform is that it's the algorithm that goes to the data, not the other way around. Federated learning is one of the techniques that we use, but we use many more ways. It's actually done through infrastructure rather than just through an algorithm. Why is that important, and where are the cost saving? So let's take an example of a date. A date, so what's today? 19th of May 21. You can represent it as 19 May 2021, 19 May 21, 1905-21, or then the American system, and I could actually go on. If you wanted to continue in the traditional model, and you had multiple organizations, see these three hexagons that have data were from a different organization, each organization would have a different way of representing the date, and they would have to convert it into an agreed date format. That takes time and money, and is actually quite expensive. Those of who have dealt with algorithms and analytics would know this painful process. Using the AI platform, we don't have to do that, because the algorithm will go to the data and it will understand the data in whatever format it's in, because the understanding is built within. So this is today, and this can be achieved today. Now let's think about the volume of data. So this is reduced data transformation. Now let's look at remove data duplication. So say that a bank had to report to a regulator. They would have to create a new data set that is specific for that report, and they would have to send it. The bank will now have to, so the bank has a new report, and every new report, it will have multiple copies of that, and the Bank of England will have multiple copies of that. If you use the platform, there's no data duplication, because that same data set is now accessible by multiple parties. That ultimately reduces data storage. And in the context of the volume of data that the public sector gathers and stores, that can become extremely expensive, and ultimately in the long term is not very good from a climate perspective, because data storage is actually harmful for the environment, when we don't need to go into that. But I think I've made the point here. Now let's talk about availability. So again, in this instance, we're talking about the data being available for algorithms to consume. So a common problem is the data silos. We affectionately call it also the spaghetti problem, because you don't know where the data is coming from and what system it's linked in, it's present in. So by having the algorithm to go to the data, where the data is located doesn't matter anymore. So organizations in the last few years have been creating data lakes, which have ultimately become data swamps, because they had to move the data into a location easily accessible, etc., etc. Actually, with the AI platform, you don't have to transform your systems. You don't have to create a data lake. You just point to where the data currently is in whatever system it is in. Whether it's on the cloud or it's on premises, it doesn't actually matter. The most important feature, and this is where we start to talk about data collaboration, is that the data never moves. So say your organization won, your data stays within your premises, within your firewalls, under your security rules. It doesn't move. You have not transferred it to organization 2, but only the analytics and the insight is extracted and shared. But the data itself stays under your control. And control is really important when you're talking about responsibility. And then finally, the data is never pooled. So the data doesn't get pooled in a single location. And by the way, also more importantly, the data doesn't even move to our platform, because we don't believe that it should be moved. Finally, skills. Let's think about the process of transformation, and let's think about all of the upskilling programs that are happening. And that's going to take time, and that time, and it's the never-ending cycle for everybody. This is not just about the public sector, by the way. This is also about the private sector. So just to give you an example, even a company like us who is highly innovative is continuously training its staff, because you've got individuals that are highly technical and highly specialized, but they don't understand the other person's perspective. This next decade is actually about people who will be working on more than one discipline, at the intersection of more than one discipline. So of course, everybody's going to have to be upskilled on a continuous basis. I had to upskill myself to understand technology to be able to take the role that I have today. So with that, there again, technology comes to the rescue, because you're having to upskill people so that they can deliver the value that only people can deliver. But then there are tasks that they really shouldn't be spending time on. Like, for example, you need people to think about the right data governance policies and procedures, but we don't need people to deploy them. Actually, systems can do that, and you can have fail-safes in there. So we've developed into the platform automated data governance mechanisms. They're not decided by us. They're tailorable to the needs of every organization. We just automate them. And then it's important that everything is auditable, because you need to know how something was implemented, and you need to go back and check what has happened in every situation. And then finally, the workflow automation. Workflow automation, especially in data science, is really, really needed, because that's a very heavy cost to organizations that want to extract analytics. So we've actually developed a toolkit that supports individuals who are involved in data collaboration, data analytics. And finally, responsibility. So our background, apart from me coming from the regulator side and from the regulation side, my co-founders come from the cryptography side, from data security. So we have integrated privacy by design and security by design. And we have permission-based access throughout the platform, because that is very important. And here we get to the end, really. I can't believe that it's 26 minutes and I've been talking nonstop. I thought that this was going to be a lot more difficult. So in the end, the Air platform has been designed as one platform that would achieve multiple solutions on top. We're talking about infrastructure that is the foundations, and it is funded by Innovate UK. So that's a testament to the fact that it's built for the National Data Strategy. And if you haven't looked up the 10 tech priorities, please do so, because infrastructure is number one there, and data. That's it. Thank you.
Superb. Thank you very much, Sally. The reason why I wanted to bring you in at the end of the Innovation Summit was obviously for good reason. We flagged in our report that there are obviously obstacles highlighted to collaboration, in addition to security and a need for education. I think, but I combine data privacy on there as well. And I think what you've demonstrated with the Air platform is that, all three of those are really key to ensuring that actually we're managing this in the right way. So, we've highlighted that these problems exist, and hey, do you know what? This is a potential solution to not only the regulated industries, to public sector as well. So yeah, thank you very much for a really excellent presentation. Now is a really good time.
26 minutes, seriously.
I know. Now's a really good time to invite questions from our live audience, and I can see that we've had a few questions in. But please, if you'd like a question answered by Sally, now is the time to submit it. In terms of use cases, Sally, do you have any examples that you can provide our audience which would educate them in certain areas where this has been deployed?
Sure. Can I show a slide on this, one of the slides, because that probably would help to illustrate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah? Okay, so if I go back to the slides, just one minute, and I will share the right slide so we can talk about it. Right, so I'm going to stick with the data strategy slide, because I think that's going to be the most important one. So if you see the opportunities at the top, you've got growth, jobs, public services, research, and society. So one of the ones that I mentioned is public services. Now we have a system called the guidance system. So it's guidance. And the reason that it's called guidance is because we know that in public sector, you provide guidance to consumers or to individuals. You do not provide them with advice. So guidance is a solution that sits here, that answers, that receives questions from the consumer market. And say that it sits, and you have three regulators that all are running the guidance system. The guidance system would understand the questions that relate to each regulator, and then using the Air platform would send those queries to the right regulator. So therefore, you've got more efficiency at the government level and more efficiency for the consumer. So in one public sector engagement, for example, I know that 60% of the questions that they receive would be are all common to three regulators. So that's a lot of questions being received, and that's a lot of duplication. So that's one example. Another example which falls in the society bucket is, and I wish I could tell you about it also publicly, but do feel free to reach out. In private quarters, we're able to talk about it. It's 2 regulators and 4 large organizations made their data accessible through the AIR platform for a new algorithm to be developed, which provides a standard market position on a certain clause. And that algorithm is going to be available to the public. So that's a benefit for society. We use the data of the public sector and the private sector, and a new algorithm, and a new solution is now available for the public to use freely, and for the organizations that were also participating in it. So this is a pure example of collaboration. And all of the data remained private. So they did not share information with each other, and no personal information was compromised. Only the analytics is shared.
Got it, Sally. That probably feeds into the next question that we have, and that surrounds GDPR. So, really looking at the sharing of data, and why does that data not necessarily need to move, and are you compliant with things such as GDPR?
Yeah. So we are not a data processor because no personal information is being processed, and that really should answer the question. So under GDPR, GDPR applies in the context of personal information. Given that we are not sharing, we're not facilitating the sharing of personal information, but of insight, therefore GDPR doesn't apply. Therefore, we are GDPR compliant.
Got it. Okay. I'm always pausing towards the end just to wait to see if any further questions come through. Of course, by all means, submit additional questions to myself, to Sally in due course, and we will happily field them post this presentation. But really from my side, that is it for us on this session. Sally, it's a massive thank you from UKCloud for joining us for our State of Digital and Data Summit, and of course a huge thank you to the live audience who have not only joined us for this session but for our previous sessions as well. Thank you. If anyone would like to watch those sessions again, or would like to watch them on demand or share them with your colleagues, just head over to our Bright Talk channel, the UKCloud Bright Talk channel. All of the sessions are recorded there and can be viewed as of now. So all of those sessions will be there. But again, that's a session closed, and yeah, it's a big thank you to Sally and a big thank you to all of our live audience participants. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. It would have been nice to see you.
Cheerio. Goodbye.